Good morning, good morning, good morning. One of the dangers of wearing a bunch of hats is you forget which one you have on. So I want to welcome everybody who's here in the room with us, who is joining us on Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to get started right off the bat with our first two community songs. I invite you to lift your voice, join in, and let's fill this world with song. Here we go.
Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me.
I used to think that I had to. I used to think that I should. The scripture told me that I had to be good.
But now I love because I want to. I love because I am free. Guided by the Spirit. Oh Lord, Spirit of God is upon me.
Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh,
I don't need any prodding. I don't need any law. I want to sing with all my heart. God is my all in all.
I let go of my burdens. Loving God has made me free. Guided by the Spirit. Oh Lord,
Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the 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 Spirit of God is upon me. Oh.
Thought it was my duty. I thought it was my job. Somewhere I believed loving God would be hard.
loving God is wonderful. Loving God is ecstasy. Thank God for my freedom. Let me tell you, the Spirit of God is upon me.
Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me. Oh, the Spirit of God is upon me.
This one's been playing Spirit. Oh, all shocking.
Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti, Om. 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 Peace inside my mind, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside my mind, God and only God I live to see. Peace inside my mind, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside my mind, God and only God I live to see. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti Om. 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 Om. Peace inside my heart, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside my heart, God and only God I live to see. Peace inside my heart, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside my heart, God and only God I live to see. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti Om. 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 Peace inside the earth, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside the earth, God and only God I live to see. Peace inside the earth, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside the earth, God and only God I live to see. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti Om.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. And welcome the folks that have joined us in the room. Welcome, welcome. Notice it's getting louder and louder every Sunday. Now, you can write a story about that's just the same people getting louder, or it's actually more people creating more volume. You'll have to come to know. There is a method to my madness. But mostly it's just madness. Let's be real. So welcome everybody who's joining us on Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom, and the folks here in the room. I am retraining myself to scan eyeballs and eyeballs. Some of them I can see, some of them are in my imagination. So my name is Reverend Rafe Ellis, and I am so honored and privileged to be the senior minister here at Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. Let me remind us of who we are and share with any of you who are our guests this morning who we are. We are a radically inclusive, spiritually progressive, supportive community that celebrates the diversity of creation. We strive to live authentic spiritual lives through a practical application of the teachings of science of mind. We engage in sacred practices that uplift our spirit, deepen our awareness, and ignite our soul's self-expression. We demonstrate active compassion to ourselves, each other, and the world. We experience meaningful contribution through giving generously of our time, talents, and treasures. And we intentionally, on purpose, shamelessly, without apology, promote our community and our teachings. One of the ways that you in the virtual world can participate in that right now, and if you're in the room right now, if your cell phone is with you, you can do it in the room. We're breaking rules. It is no longer taboo to be on your cell phone during Sunday service. Let that go. For some of us, it's quite necessary now. And so if you share this live stream link on whatever social media platforms you play on, it simply makes it available to more people who choose to participate. So one of the things that we do to model, to actually demonstrate our commitment to inclusion, is every Sunday morning we do an inclusion candle lighting ritual. And we light these candles to celebrate the unity of all peoples, all faiths, all beings, all life. We light the first candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples. We light the second candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the third candle for Taoism, honoring the path of ultimate reality, the natural way. We light the fourth candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the fifth candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the middle way and path of compassion. We light the sixth candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the teachings of Jesus as the path of love, forgiveness, and healing by the presence within. We light the seventh candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We light the eighth candle for the religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the ninth candle for all forms of New Thought teachings, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles of love and law. And we light the 10th candle for absolute inclusivity, affirming that all are welcome and celebrated here. And we light this final candle, honoring the infinity of oneness as all creation, seen and unseen. Thank you, Deborah. And so now I invite you to lift your voice as we sing our next community song. It's a Daniel Namad song, Get Ready, My Soul.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Everything I've ever done and everything I've ever seen, everything I've lost or won, everything I've ever dreamed has brought me here to the present moment, here to a new beginning, here, and I'm seeing life so clearly now. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. 'Cause here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go, closer Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Get ready, my soul.
Thank you, Juanita and Rick, for hanging in. Jeff and Julie are playing music in Auburn this morning. So we're adapting because that is the nature of life these days. Adapt. So this is our time of announcements. And we only have a few, but let me get right to those. I was made aware that this slide was difficult to read, so we fixed that. Your feedback really does change things when you give it. Actualizing Wholeness Discussion Group, the first Tuesday of the month from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. That is a Zoom-only offering, so wherever you are on planet Earth that has an internet connection and has the Zoom platform, you are welcome to join us. We would love to have you. This coming Wednesday is the last Ask the Rev anything for a while. The weather's nicer, folks are playing more in the evening, and so we're just not getting the engagement to justify the time and energy to keep it going. So we're going to park it for a while. Keep sending your questions, because they will get added to the queue. And with any kind of luck, when the weather shifts this fall, we'll revisit that and bring it back up. Okay? Let's see. We are open. Now here's the thing. This has become the most confusing component of any community anywhere. And spiritual community is not immune to that. So the CDC has recently changed their guidelines about masks, that if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need to wear one. That brings up the issue of who's fully vaccinated and who's not, and whether we have the right to even ask, and even if we have the right to ask, is it the ethical thing to do to ask, and is it the kind thing to do to ask, and is it any of our business to ask? And some people think, yep, it's my business because my safety is dependent on it, and other people say, nope, my safety is my business, and June 15th, supposedly, all bets are off, and all of the regulations go away, and there are no capacity limits unless you have 5,000 people inside and 10,000 people outside, which I would love to think we were at risk of, but let's be real, we're not. So all of that to say we're open and we're figuring it out as we go. And you are part of that figuring it out as we go. And so if it's important to you that your voice be heard, it is incumbent upon you to speak your voice in a manner that it can be heard. Okay? There is email. There is voicemail. There is my cell phone number. There are board members you can talk to. What doesn't work is if you have thoughts and you have feelings and you don't express those, and then decisions are made that you disagree with, and then you jump in after the fact to belittle everybody for working their tails off in the process. Not so helpful, folks. Not so helpful. So we can do that differently. I challenge you to find a minister that will be more inclusive than me. And that challenges me to be more inclusive today than I was yesterday. So it's a reciprocal process. I genuinely want to know what you think and what you need and what will serve you. But you have to tell me. I gave up my crystal ball June 3rd, 2006 at 6:30 p.m. I retired my crystal ball. That is the moment I got married. And if you got married and didn't retire your crystal ball, let's talk. All right. So, there we go. Those are the announcements. So this is our time of inward shift. Let's let all of that fall away. Our practitioner this morning, Deborah Ellis, is going to come speak to us about our community value of authenticity. And then we will do a short meditation, and then she will bring us out of the meditation with our opening spiritual mind treatment and our affirmation for the week. What? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good morning, beloveds.
Good morning.
God, it feels so good to be in here with people. Awesome, awesome. So today I'm going to share about authenticity because authenticity is one of the values that Sierra Center for Spiritual Living members identified as a value that we want to focus on in 2021. So authenticity is a word that gets used frequently. And nowadays, we could ask maybe 10 different people what it means, and we'd likely get 10 different meanings. So this morning, I'm going to choose this definition for us to focus on and to contemplate. Authenticity is the quality of being true or real and genuine. Being authentic means that you act in ways that show your true self and how you feel, rather than showing people only a particular side of yourself. You express your whole self genuinely. Now, in the rooms of 12-step recovery, there is a coin that is offered to mark time that a person has been sober or free from drugs. To thine own self be true is what it says on this coin. And it's a symbol for authenticity, a symbol for being yourself and being true to yourself. In our opening ritual candlelighting and the statements about who we are, there lies a welcoming to be authentically who we are and to know that each one of us is welcome here. So I'm going to end with a quote from Dr. Brené Brown, who is a research professor who has spent decades studying courage, vulnerability, and authenticity. To be authentic, we must cultivate the courage to be imperfect and vulnerable. We have to believe that we are fundamentally worthy of love and acceptance, just as we are. I've learned that there is no better way to invite more grace, gratitude, and joy into our lives than by being authentic. So it is. like your next breath to be a little bit deeper than the one before. Breathing in the perfection that is present right here in this moment. The power, the presence, the love, the perfect peace, perfect joy. That deep and abiding peace that is the peace of the one, the beloved. It is all-knowing, all-powerful, forever giving and sustaining and uplifting itself as all of life. It is what is seen and what is unseen, and it is that activity back of all of creation, simultaneously creator and creation. It is the breath of all of life, and it is my very breath right now, connecting to all of it in this moment and beyond. So it's from this place of truth that I joyfully speak a word about what is happening here. It is that deep and loving presence that is vibrating and expressing and just bubbling right here and right now. And so I express joy to know this. And I accept and claim and affirm that there is a deeper walk with this authentic expression of life. That what has been coded and loaded as conditions of life in the individualized expression of this one are just that, conditions. And I accept a deeper unfolding and embodying of the spiritual truth, that there is a wholeness and a perfection that is present, seen and unseen, and that there is now an allowing of an embodiment of this in all affairs, in every moment, in every connection, every word spoken, every deed, every action. So grateful, so thankful for this place we call Sierra Center for Spiritual Living, to gather together as community, to be in love and the expression of love with one another. And I give great thanks for our beloved Reverend Rafe and his message this morning, and for all of the work and the hands that have brought this service into fruition. So thankful. And so I release into that activity of love and law and allow even more, a greater expansion, a greater love. And I simply just let it rest. And I anchor this by saying, and so it is. All right, good morning, beloveds. I'm so glad that you're here, wherever you're tuning in from. We're so glad that you're here with us. And so what I'm going to do this morning, my name is Deborah Ellis, and I'm one of your licensed practitioners, privileged to be in service here to you today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the affirmation through once, and then we'll read it together. All right. I rise up and lead knowing that I am someone's answered prayer. All right, here we go. I rise up and lead knowing that I am someone's answered prayer. And so it is. Welcome.
So this can be a sing-along too, if you'd like. The part that you'll sing along to says, put the message in the box, put the box into the car, drive the car around the world until you get heard. And if you listen now, you might hear a new sound coming in as an old one disappears. To see the world in just one grain of sand, you better take a closer look. Don't let it slip right through your hands. Oh, won't you please hear the call? The world says, put the message in the box. Put the box into the car and drive the car around the world until you get hurt. Now is the moment. Please understand. The road is wide open to the heart of every man. A few simple words so a mule could understand. He don't want tomorrow if it's crumbling into sand. Oh, won't you please hear the call? And she says, put the message in the box. Put the box into the car and drive the car around the world until you get hurt. Put the message in the box. Put the box into the car and drive the car around the world until you get hurt. And the world says, give a little bit of your love to me. 'Cause I'm waiting right here with open arms. Give a little bit of your soul to me. 'Cause I'm waiting to behold your many charms. Is that love in the air? And she says, put the message in the box. Put the box into the car and drive the car around the world until you get hurt. Put the message in the box. Put the box into the car and drive the car around the world until you get hurt. Put the message in the box. Put the box into the car and drive the car around the world until you get hurt. Put the message in the box. Put the box into the car and drive the car around the world until you get hurt. Thank you.
All right. Got all the slides lined up. My microphone back in place. Okay. Let's take a breath together. So this morning's talk title, and we're working from a bank of talks that the entire organization has at their disposal. Cell phones are okay nowadays. See, we just kind of roll with it. And here's the thing about these talk banks. They're prepared in advance, and they are a really inclusive project. And sometimes the talk titles change and evolve, or let's say our understanding of them change and evolve. And the talk titles say their name. A year ago, I was in a different place with a different level of education. And Say Their Name is actually a project that belongs to black people. It doesn't belong to Centers for Spiritual Living. It's like the Transgender Day of Remembrance belongs to the trans community. It's like Pride Day belongs to the LGBTQIA+, give us a minute, we'll fill out the alphabet community. I can say that because I'm one of them. And so the theme behind this talk is about honoring our ancestors. And we're going to do that, but I need to speak to the unintentional cultural appropriation of the term Say Their Names, which is really a honoring of black bodies that have been killed by violence based in racism and prejudice and bigotry, which is very different than honoring our ancestors. And I want to make it okay that sometimes we have missteps, because we all do. In this process of evolution, we all misunderstand things. We all have our moments of evolution. One of mine was earlier this year when I looked at that title, I had a flinch, right? I'm not sure that title is, I'm not sure I should use that title. So instead of honoring that, and you'll see how all this fits in a minute, I looked at who wrote the talk, and it was the Reverend Dr. His name just fell out my head, and I can see his beautiful face right in front of me. Sign language, help me out, Deborah. Raymond, there we go. Thank you. See, all she had to do was look at me, and there it was. That's how we help each other out sometimes. Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson, who is a black man. And so I justified that the talk title was okay because the black man wrote the talk. And that's ridiculous, because he might be okay with it, but if something inside of me is saying, flag, then that's mine to pay attention to. And next week, our talk is about letting go of our story. And so this week, I want to use this honoring of our ancestors to get honest about what story are we writing to start with. Because before we change our story, it might be a good idea to take some ownership of the one we've already written. Right? And so I could tell you about Emma Curtis Hopkins and her influence on New Thought. I can tell you that she was referred to as the teacher of teachers. I can tell you that Ernest Holmes was an avid student of Emma Curtis Hopkins, to honor Emma Curtis Hopkins. Or I could tell you that Emma Curtis Hopkins' life was tumultuous. That 3 years before burying her son, her husband divorced her. I can tell you that 30 years she spent as a wandering mystic, essentially homeless by choice, to take these teachings out into the world and prove to herself that God and only God was her supply. See, we can humanize our ancestors. We can humanize them. I could tell you about all of Emerson's writings, and you probably know about a lot of them. Or I could tell you that he was one of 8 children 5 that survived to adulthood, and 3 that died before he was 30. I could tell you about his wife who died very shortly after they were married, and how his grief was so profound that years after her death, he actually visited her grave and dug up her coffin. And the beauty that he found even in the corpse. See, what if we start humanizing one another? What if we take away all of the pedestals? What if we take away all of the stories that we're writing about one another, even about ourselves, and begin to tell the story that's accurate, that's real? I could tell you about Henry David Thoreau and Walden and his amazing awakenings from his relationship with nature. Well, we could humanize Henry David Thoreau, and we could celebrate that while he studied at Harvard, he never had a Harvard degree. And he didn't have a Harvard degree because at the time, Harvard only offered degrees after you had finished your study for 3 years and proven enough wealth to be able to send them $5 to buy your sheepskin. Regardless of your level of study, it was completely worthless. It had no academic credibility whatsoever. And Henry David Thoreau said, let every sheep keep their cloth, keep their skin. Let every sheep keep their skin. And he refused to pay Harvard $5. He had it, but he's like, what kind of game is this, right? He quit his job. While he met Emerson before he was actually deeply engaged with Emerson, he was Emerson's handyman. He taught the Emerson children, and he literally was the repairman and the gardener. But how many of us know that? Right? When we humanize one another, the narratives change. When we put our ancestors up on pedestals, it's easy to dismiss the gift of their teaching as unattainable by normal humans. Right? It's like, yeah, well, they figured that out and they lived it, but they're the exception. Right? We do the same thing with Jesus. He's not the great exception. He's a great example. The leaders in New Thought that I've mentioned this morning, they're not exceptions. They're examples. Emma Curtis Hopkins, while Phineas Parkhurst Quimby is oftentimes referred to as the father of New Thought, he's actually not. It's actually Emma Curtis Hopkins. But we lived in a time that was male dominant. And so even though Phineas Parkhurst Quimby left no writings of his own, his students took notes. And at the end, he turned all of his notes over to his primary students, the Dresser family. And it was Horatio Willis Dresser and the other members of the Dresser family that put everything down in writing and credited Quimby. Now, none of that's bad or wrong. But how does our understanding of New Thought begin to shift and change when we read it from more level human perspective? That none of these folks had a magic ball. That none of them had a special inroad to truth or wisdom. That Thomas Troward, or Troward, we're constantly having an argument of how to pronounce his name, like that matters, but it does to a lot of people. You'd be amazed, okay? Had one student. He was a judge for the majority of his life, and it wasn't until he retired from being a judge that he began to study. And he didn't even study new thought. What he was studying was the relationship between cause and effect, which we later understood is new thought. Right? He had one student the entire time, but he wrote everything down. So what if your only student is you, but you write your awakenings down? What if you journal for no other purpose than to add your wisdom, the divine coming through you, to the mix? Because when you're seeking answers, do we not go to the bookshelf? Right? Some of us do. If we're being honest, how many self-help books do we have in our libraries at home in mint condition because they've never been opened? Right? I have a few. That in itself is information from the divine. We're reaching out for answers, and yet we don't open the book. Why is that? Something inside of us knows where the answer is, and it knows it's inside of us. But the activity of reaching out might just open the door for us to know what we knew all along. Maybe we don't need to read the self-help books. Maybe we need to be about the business of writing our own. Not to help anybody else, but wait, what are they called? Self-help books. What if you accessed the ancestral wisdom, which is nothing more than divine intelligence infused in every single expression of humanity? What if you accessed that and wrote your own self-help book? It requires this thing that Deborah was talking about this morning, authenticity. And authenticity, as her quote, if I'm remembering this correctly, included courage and honesty. I submit to you this morning that our lack of courage and our lack of honesty is creating every problem we experience. And it's not a lack of courage to deal with life, it's a lack of courage to be honest. Because we've written all of these narratives, not about being honest, but about the mistake of lying. See, we have so deeply vilified ourselves and one another that in order to be honest, we have to admit that we lied, and we can't even get there. Because to lie is so egregious that honesty becomes unavailable. Our ancestors that I mentioned this morning lived beyond that. They lived their truth. They didn't sit around. You know, I can't imagine that when Emerson went to his wife's grave, that he did so worrying about what somebody else was going to think about it. That when he journaled about it, that he was worried about what you and I were going to think about the morbidity or not of that umpteen years later. I don't think he thought about that. When Emma Curtis Hopkins said, I'm going to spend the next 30 years traveling and teaching these teachings because she saw it as a shift from a profession to a ministry. And if it's a ministry, then if I just minister, it will care for itself, it being source. Now, I've had that thought since ministerial school of being on the road, living in a bus, just teaching these teachings to everybody who will listen. The difference between Emma Curtis Hopkins and me is that Emma Curtis Hopkins was all in, and I have a ton of reservations. I have a ton of earth conditioning that says, how's that going to get paid for? People will think I'm crazy. My wife will divorce me. Blah, 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 blah. All of it's made up. All of it. Every single bit of it is made up. What separates them is they heard God's call and they just said yes. No matter what it looked like, no matter what anybody else thought about it. Thoreau's time in the woods was not for the purpose of writing a book. It was so that Thoreau would understand Thoreau. And he wrote it down and it became a book. I invite you this week to throw good and bad, to throw right and wrong, to throw more or less, to throw all idea of judgment away and look honestly at you. What story are you writing? What narrative is playing out in your life? Is it honest? Or is it a narrative someone else has written that you are living because you lack the courage to be honest? You don't need to share it with another soul. But we each, as we say in the South, at some point everybody has a come to Jesus meeting. It's that place where we get real with ourselves. I think the most honoring thing we can do for the New Thought ancestors, the people that collectively gave us this gift, is to walk in the example that they set for us. Not to read everything they wrote, but to go beyond that, to go to that place of how it got written. By listening deeply, and by trusting that whatever made us, and I don't mean the sperm and the egg, I mean the spiritual made us. Whatever this thing is that creates out of itself, by itself, to be itself, will in fact take care of itself if we will get our humanness out of the way. Perhaps. Let's take this into prayer. And so as I recognize the infinite, that ever-present allness, the one, I recognize that it is infinite intelligence, that it is absolute abundance, that it is infinite possibility, the changeless, formless, that always changes form, that knows itself, that is itself. And so I know that it is my life, that it is the very breath that is breathing me. And so knowing that it is my life, I know that all that it is fully available to me in every moment, every breath. And so I simply say yes. I say yes to letting go of every distraction, every conditioning, every belief, every assumption that separates me from the truth of me. Knowing that as I know the truth of me, I know the truth of every element of creation. One truth. Oneness. Wholeness. I say yes to that. And I celebrate its magnificence being made manifest in the form of alignment. The simple removal of everything that's not it. Opening the floodgates of infinite affluence, unrestricted flow. And so I let go. I say yes to being that. I let it be. And so it is. Let's take another breath together. So this is our time of conscious giving. Ta-da. Thank you, Dell, for being in sync. And it's an amazing thing to have people in the room and building a tech team. And so with that January 15th thing, we're going to need folks back in service. So if you're called to do that, call me and tell me that. June 15th, what did I say? No. Yeah, apparently I'm like Back to the Future. All right. So if you have been blessed by this time together, if it has fed you spiritually, we simply ask that you feed us spiritually, financially, that you participate in the reciprocity of giving. So let's say our prosperity affirmation together. I give this gift with love and joy from a consciousness of abundance. Divine love blesses and prospers all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Real quickly, our reminders, we are open. They are shifting. They are changing. We will keep you posted as we make decisions. Primarily, the majority of those decisions rely on the board, and I assure you, your board is working their fannies off on your behalf. They really are. So, let's stand. Let's do our benediction together. Something wonderful is happening as me right now.
Something wonderful is happening as me right now.
It is this thing called honesty.
It is this thing called honesty.
It is this thing called infinite intelligence.
It is this thing called infinite intelligence.
It is this thing called authenticity.
It is this thing called authenticity.
I know it. I feel it. I sense it. Because I am it. And so it is. And now we're going to sing out.
I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free.